Hey, I'm Emily, and this is how my life went from normal to completely upside down in a matter of months. I had been married to Rick for 7 years. On paper, we had it all: a nice home, a steady income, and what I thought was a pretty strong relationship. But in hindsight, there were signs, little things I ignored or chalked up to him just being busy. Turns out, I was blind to what was really happening behind my back. It all started around the time I hit a career milestone. I had been working as a marketing manager at a tech company, and I had worked my butt off to get where I was. But then Rick came to me with an idea. He said, "Em, I think it would be best for our marriage if you quit your job. We need more time together, and I need you here, with me." I was taken aback. He had always been supportive of my career. We had even talked about how we balanced both our jobs and our relationship. But now, it felt like he was suddenly pushing me to quit. He said that working all the time was starting to hurt our marriage. I mean, we had a nice life, but he wasn't wrong in saying that I was stressed and stretched thin. Still, it felt like an odd request. But he was so insistent. "It's just temporary," he promised. "We'll be happier if you focus on us." After a lot of back and forth, I gave in. I thought, maybe he was right. Maybe it was time to put our relationship first. So, I handed in my resignation and started focusing on being there for Rick, cooking dinner, planning weekend getaways, and being the wife he always wanted. I didn't even question it too much. I trusted him. But looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. What did I really give up? And why did he need me to be so available? Months passed, and the pressure of living in a constant state of togetherness started to weigh on me. Rick wasn't the same. He started getting distant, working late, being distracted, leaving his phone face down when I was around. I told myself it was just stress from work. But in my gut, I knew something wasn't right. And then one night, he dropped a bombshell. "I'm in love with someone else," he said, sitting me down on the couch. The words hung in the air like a thick fog. I just stared at him, completely numb. My mind was racing, but I couldn't even process what was happening. "What?" I whispered. "I'm sorry, Em," he said, voice shaking slightly. "But it's true. I've been seeing someone else. She's younger. I've fallen for her, and I think it's time for us to go our separate ways." I couldn't speak. My chest felt tight, like the air had been sucked out of the room. All the sacrifices, all the effort I put into our life together, it meant nothing. He had checked out without even giving me a real chance. I, I don't know what to say. I finally choked out. And then he said something that felt like a knife to my heart. "You should have focused on us. I didn't want to have to ask you to quit your job, but you never made time for me. This is your fault too, you know." And with that, he stood up, walked out the door, and left me with nothing but his words ringing in my ears. But what he didn't know was that he had just opened a door I hadn't seen coming. For the next few days, I felt like I was in a daze. I had just lost the man I thought I would spend the rest of my life with. And worse, I had sacrificed my career for a man who couldn't even be honest with me. But then it hit me. There was one thing I could do. I could make sure the other woman knew exactly what kind of man she was dealing with. So I did some digging. Her name was Sarah. She was in her mid-20s, and from what I could gather, she worked in marketing at a small firm downtown. Rick had told me she was just someone he met through work, but I knew better. I knew exactly who she was. I found her Instagram. It wasn't hard, and the photos they had posted together made me sick. There they were, smiling like a picture-perfect couple, not knowing the truth about the man they both loved. I needed to talk to her. I sent her a simple message, one that was calm but direct. "Hi, Sarah. My name is Emily, and I'm Rick's wife. I'm sorry to do this, but I think you deserve to know that he's been married to me for 7 years. He's been lying to both of us, and I wanted to make sure you knew the truth." The reply came quickly. "What?" It was short, but I could hear the shock in her words. "I know this is a lot, but I just wanted you to be aware of who you're involved with," I continued. "Rick's been lying to you about his life, and I think you deserve to know. He's been cheating on me for months." I could hear her starting to freak out. "You're telling me Rick's married? Why didn't he say anything?" I sighed, not sure what to expect. "I don't know, but I don't want you to waste any more time on a man who isn't being honest with you." The silence on the other end of the phone stretched on, and I could practically feel Sarah's brain working through everything I had just told her. I wasn't sure if she was angry, shocked, or just confused, maybe all three. But when she finally responded, her voice was shaky but determined. I need to talk to him. This isn't possible. I don't know what to say to you right now, but I appreciate you telling me." I can't believe he lied to me like this. I could tell she was trying to process everything, but I wasn't going to let her off the hook. Look, I get that this is a lot, but don't let him manipulate you like he did me. I thought I knew who he was too. I gave up my career, my independence, all for him. And he didn't even hesitate to throw me away. There was a brief pause before Sarah spoke again, this time in a firmer tone. I'll call him. He needs to explain this to me. I didn't waste any time. I knew I had done all I could to warn her, but the truth was, he needed to face the consequences of his actions. The next part of the plan wasn't in my hands anymore. It was up to Sarah. I didn't hear from Sarah the rest of that day, but I was glued to my phone, half expecting a call or a message from Rick. The silence was deafening. He hadn't even tried to reach out to me. That was a red flag, wasn't it? I should have been angry, but I was strangely calm. Maybe I'd already gone numb from the shock. Maybe the years of living under his control had prepared me for this moment. The following morning, I got the call. It was Sarah. Emily, he's gone, she said, her voice a mix of disbelief and anger. I confronted him. He packed his things and left, said he couldn't deal with the lies anymore, that he was in love with me. And now he's gone. He's not coming back to either of us. I couldn't help but smile. It wasn't exactly the sweet revenge I imagined, but it felt damn good. You're better off without him, trust me, I said, my voice steady. I never thought he'd do this to me, Sarah admitted, sounding defeated. I can't believe I wasted so much time on him. I didn't know whether I should console her or just hang up and move on. I'd warned her, after all, but it didn't matter now. Rick had dug his own grave. But I wasn't done yet. Rick thought he could just leave me with nothing, no career, no income, no way of moving forward. He thought I'd fall apart, that I would beg him to come back. But instead, I made a decision right then and there. If he thought I'd be stuck at home, playing the role of the abandoned wife, he was wrong. Dead wrong. I didn't rush into anything, no impulsive decisions, no hasty moves. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in months, I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't known in years. Rick had taken everything from me, but I was about to get it all back. I started by reaching out to my old company. The marketing job I had quit felt like a distant memory, but I had the skills, and I wasn't about to let Rick's selfishness define me. The next few days were a blur of emails, phone calls, and getting back into the professional world. It felt strange, exhilarating even, like I was building a new life from scratch. A few weeks passed, and life started to feel like it was moving forward. I was getting callbacks from companies, a few job offers here and there. My confidence was slowly coming back, and for the first time in what felt like ages, I started to feel like me again. I was making my own decisions, living my own life, and Rick was nothing but a distant memory. But, of course, the calm before the storm never lasts. It was a Thursday afternoon when I got the message from him. Rick. I saw his name pop up on my phone and immediately felt a wave of unease. It had been weeks since we'd last spoken. His absence had almost become normal, but the idea of him reaching out again felt like a punch to the gut. I didn't want to read it. I told myself I didn't need to. But curiosity got the best of me, and I opened the message. Emily, I've made a huge mistake. I need you to listen. I want us to try again. You were right about everything. Sarah and I, we're not going to work. She wasn't what I thought. I can't live without you. Please, let's fix this. Please. I stared at the message for a long time. The audacity. The nerve. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or scream. After everything he had put me through, he actually thought that after all this, I would just welcome him back with open arms? I didn't respond. Not right away. Instead, I let the message sit there, the words swirling in my head, until they stopped feeling like anything at all. But Rick wasn't done. A few hours later, I got another message. Then another. And another. He was practically begging, pleading for me to hear him out. I finally snapped. You think you can just come back after all of this? I typed, furious but calm. You ruined everything. You left me for someone else, and now you're trying to come back because she's not what you thought? Newsflash, Rick, you don't get to pick and choose when you want to be a part of my life. I didn't hold back. I poured out everything I had bottled up over the past few months, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the anger. And in the middle of that emotional storm, a thought struck me. What if he still doesn't understand what he's lost? What if he thinks he can walk away from me, go back to his little perfect life, and have everything work out for him? I decided then and there that he needed to understand just how far I'd come without him. But I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of knowing he still had any control over me. The next day, I was invited to an event with one of the companies I'd interviewed with. It was a high-profile networking event, an opportunity that could take my career to new heights. I wasn't sure if I was ready, but the invitation was too big to pass up. As I prepared for the evening, I found myself thinking more about Rick. The nerve of him. He didn't deserve a second chance. And so I decided to turn the tables. I called Sarah. The phone rang twice before she picked up. Her voice, still laced with confusion and hurt, greeted me. "Emily?" she asked, sounding surprised. "What's going on?" "I need to tell you something," I said, my tone calm but deliberate. "I know Rick's been contacting you, telling you how much he messed up, how he wants to come back to me." There was a pause. "What?" "He told me he was done with you. He said you were the one who wasn't right for him." I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, that's what he told me too. He thought he could just walk away, leaving me with nothing, and go back to you because you were younger. But here's the thing, Sarah. He messed up. He messed up so bad that he's now scrambling to fix everything. And I'm not going to let him think he can just come crawling back." "What are you doing?" Sarah asked, her voice tinged with both fear and curiosity. "What's your plan?" I smiled to myself. "I'm going to show him what he really gave up. You see, Sarah, you've been used. And you've been hurt, just like I was. He's going to pay for what he did. But I need your help." Sarah didn't ask any more questions. She was on board. And that's when I started putting my plan into motion. I'd been doing some digging, of course. Nothing major, but I'd found a few things I could use, things that would help me build the perfect storm of consequences for Rick. He thought he could walk away and start fresh, playing the role of the victim, while I was left to pick up the pieces. But he had no idea how much I knew, or how much I had the power to unravel. It wasn't just about getting back at him. It was about showing him the true extent of his actions. I wanted him to understand that this wasn't just a minor inconvenience for him. No, he was going to lose everything. And he was going to realize that everything he had left, I'd helped him build. I already knew Rick's boss, Valerie, through some of the connections I had made during our time together. She'd always seemed like a strong, no-nonsense woman who didn't put up with crap. I had the perfect ammunition. You see, Valerie had been around when Rick first started working for her company. She knew how much he'd grown, how much his career had flourished because of the opportunities one had helped him seize. I had helped him build his image, helped him become that ideal employee. But that image was about to crumble, and I had just the right person to help me knock it down. I picked up the phone, dialed her number, and waited for her to pick up. When she did, I wasted no time. "Hey, Valerie," I greeted her, keeping my tone light but purposeful. "This is Emily, Rick's ex-wife." "Emily," she said, sounding a little surprised. "How are you?" "Well, I'm doing much better now. Thanks for asking," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I was actually wondering if I could talk to you about something that happened a while ago. Something that might concern you, given the recent changes around Rick." There was a brief pause on the other end. I could almost hear her interest peaking. "What are you talking about?" I leaned in, a smile playing at the edge of my lips. "I'm sure you've heard the rumors about Rick and his relationship with Sarah. But what you probably don't know is that it wasn't just a breakup. You see, Rick had been cheating on me for months before he left, and he was seeing Sarah while still with me. I think it's important that you know the kind of person you're dealing with. It's not just about what he did to me, it's about what he's been hiding. If you value integrity in your workplace, I think you should know the kind of man he is. And I'm not sure you want someone like him representing your company." The silence on the other end was deafening, and I could almost picture Valerie's face as she processed what I just said. Finally, she spoke again, her voice sharp and controlled. "You're saying he was cheating on you while he was working here?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Exactly. And I know you value loyalty and trust in your company. Do you really want someone like Rick working for you, knowing he's been hiding his personal life from you and your employees?" She hesitated. "I'll look into it. Thanks for bringing this to my attention, Emily. I'll let you know if I have any other questions." I hung up, feeling an immediate rush of satisfaction. That was the first part of my plan in motion. Over the next few days, things began to fall into place. It wasn't long before I heard from Sarah again. "He's gone," she said, her voice a mixture of disbelief and relief. "I don't know how you did it, but I guess Rick thought his new life with me was going to be perfect. But when Valerie found out, she fired him. She said she didn't want people like him in her company, and she made it clear that his dishonesty would not be tolerated." I let out a low laugh. "I told you, Sarah. Rick didn't just burn bridges with me, he burned them with everyone. He's going to find out the hard way that his actions have consequences." I didn't expect that, Sarah admitted, sounding both relieved and somewhat vindicated. I honestly didn't think you'd be able to do all of this. But thank you. He had it coming. Oh, trust me, I said, a grin creeping up on my face. He's going to have a lot more to lose before this is over. And I wasn't kidding. Rick had thought he could walk away and get a fresh start, that I'd be stuck picking up the pieces of my shattered life. But what he hadn't counted on was me rising from the ashes. And what he definitely hadn't counted on was everyone finding out what a selfish, manipulative person he really was. The worst part for him? He still hadn't figured out the final move in my plan. The days after Rick lost his job felt almost surreal. I could already feel the momentum building, everything falling into place like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that only I could see. I could hear it in his voice when he called me, still in shock, trying to reach out for some kind of pity from me. But I wasn't having any of it. Emily, listen, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. You have to understand, it wasn't like I planned it, Rick pleaded over the phone, his voice a mix of desperation and guilt. Save it, I snapped, cutting him off. You think I'm going to feel bad for you? You think I'm going to go back to being the woman who always cleaned up your messes? I'm not that person anymore. I could hear him sigh on the other end, probably trying to find the right words to win me back. But nothing he said was going to change anything. He'd made his bed, and now he had to lie in it. The only thing left for me was to make sure everyone knew exactly who Rick was. It was time to pull the final card. I had a pretty good following on social media, nothing huge, but enough that I could make a statement if I wanted to. The world could see exactly what kind of man Rick really was. So I started gathering everything I could. I knew Rick had made a point of showing off his perfect life with Sarah on his Instagram. He had been bragging about how much better things were, how free he felt. He posted pictures of their dates, their vacations, all those moments meant to paint a picture of happiness. But what he didn't know was that I had kept copies of all the messages he'd sent me during our marriage. I kept the ones where he talked about his infidelity, those late-night texts to other women while telling me he was working late. I had everything. Screenshots of his conversations, photos of his lies, and even details about how he had tried to cover up his affair with Sarah, pretending it wasn't happening. I was going to expose it all. So, I spent the next few days crafting the perfect post. It wasn't just about telling my side of the story. No, I wanted to make sure the whole world saw Rick for the coward he really was. I started with a simple caption. This is what happens when trust is broken. Let the world know who you really are, Rick. And then, I attached the screenshots. The messages, the photos, the proof that he'd been cheating on me with Sarah, while pretending to be the devoted husband. I tagged Rick in the post, made sure to include a few key hashtags, because if this was going to blow up, it needed to reach the right people. The moment I hit post, my heart raced. I knew this was it. This was the moment when Rick's life would spiral completely out of control. There was no coming back from this. It didn't take long for the post to blow up. The first comment came from an old friend of Rick's. Is this real? I thought Rick was one of the good guys. What the hell? Then more comments came flooding in. People who knew him, people I hadn't spoken to in years, joining the conversation. The messages were full of disbelief. Some of them, in a weird way, actually blamed me. Why didn't you leave him sooner? You should have fought harder for him. But I didn't care. I was past caring about their opinions. They weren't the ones who'd been betrayed. The second wave came, though, and that's when it hit Rick hard. His friends, his supposed brothers from the gym. They started turning on him. The ones who had respected him, admired him for his family man image. Those were the people who started commenting, asking why they hadn't known the truth. One by one, they backed out. The comments got uglier. I can't believe you'd do this to Emily. You were family. You should be ashamed of yourself. I could almost hear Rick screaming at his phone as he read through them. But the real kicker came when Sarah saw the post. I'd expected her to defend him, to double down on the lies and pretend like everything was still fine. But I was wrong. She messaged me not long after the post went live. I had no idea, she wrote, her words full of regret. I thought he was honest with me. He told me he was done with you, that everything was over. I had no idea he was still lying to both of us. I'm so sorry. I almost laughed. She had been just as manipulated as I had. I could feel the irony in the air, thick and heavy. She had bought into Rick's lies, and now here she was, realizing she had been nothing more than a side act in his drama. I wasn't about to take the high road with her, though. You should have known, I replied, my fingers dancing across the keys. You're a grown woman, Sarah. You could have asked. You could have done better. But you didn't. I pressed send and immediately blocked her number. But the damage had already been done. The post had gone viral. It spread like wildfire, and in no time, Rick was being bombarded by texts, calls, and notifications. His friends started publicly distancing themselves. His family? They were silent at first, but I could feel the judgment growing. Then came the worst blow of all, his boss, Valerie. The very woman who had fired him after I exposed his infidelity to her. Valerie sent Rick a final email, no more warnings. She made it clear that she didn't tolerate people who couldn't be honest and loyal. He'd been caught in his lies, and now he was being cut loose from every avenue he had relied on to stay afloat. She had no room for someone like him in her company, and she made it clear that his unprofessional behavior would never be tolerated in her workplace again. Rick's fall from grace was swift. He couldn't hold on to his job anymore. His friends weren't calling. His family had turned their backs on him. His social media was flooded with people calling him out. He was a laughingstock, a man who had thought he could get away with everything, and now the world knew the truth. And me? I was finally free. I didn't need Rick's approval anymore. I didn't need anyone's validation. I was living my life for me now, building my own success. I didn't need to beg for attention or apologize for the things I had done. I had reclaimed my power, and I was going to keep moving forward, stronger than ever. But Rick? Well, he was now exactly where I wanted him to be, at rock bottom.